I'm reminded of a story of a guy when he was in high school, would sit down by somebody in classroom and he would say, so my name is, and find out who they are and all that. And his next question is, so do you party? Now from there he's going to find out that yes they do or no they don't. And his next question is so why? Why do you party? And they're going to be taken back by that, and it's like and he says invariably the question that comes back to him is, so do you party? and and he says nah, in such a way that they go, what's up with this guy? And invariably would ask, so why? And from that he would begin to tell the story that he was a Christian. And two things would happen. One is, if he would lead them to Christ, then he would say to them, hey, why don't you tell the teacher up there that I really don't want to sit by this guy anymore? And the teacher would move them. Okay, so if they became a Christian, he would do that, and he would get moved to somebody else, and he would say, so tell me, do you party? And start the process all over again. Now, if they don't become a Christian, you know what they would do? They'd go up to the teacher finally and say, hey, I don't want to sit by this guy. Could you please move him? So invariably he would get moved to somebody else, and he would ask the question, so do you party? The teacher kept him after class one day and said, so why do people don't want to sit by you? And his question was, do you really want to know? And that's what he would do with all the guys. They'd say back to him, so do you party? And he'd say no, and they'd say, so why? And he would go, you really want to know? And they go, yeah. And it's, are you sure you want to know? And so they'd be leaning in. It's like even more interested. What's he going to say? What's this all about? And then begin to share Christ. So anyway, the teacher keeps him after school and says, why is it? And he says, do you really want to know? And she says, yeah. Are you sure you want to know? And begins to share Christ with the teacher. And that was his system. That's what he did. So there are some things that we can do to just really open doors and to evangelize. I think the video that you saw before this one typifies us way too often, because we are very afraid of sharing Christ, and because we don't know what direction we're going to go, and it's an awkward and all of this stuff. So I just want to encourage you with that. I jotted down a couple of false assumptions here, and I'll kind of close with this. I think the first one is I can't evangelize. I don't have what it takes. I don't have enough information. I don't have enough knowledge. I love this. You can actually be dumb as a rock and lead people to Christ. It talks about the star leading the wise men to a place where they could find Jesus, and it says that the wise men left there a different way. Now, I know they physically left there a different way so they could avoid Herod, and I know that's what it's referring to, but you have to know that they left there in a different state of mind as well. Just leading people to a place, at least, I mean, that's where it begins. That's just a very basic, leading people to a place where they can find and meet Jesus, and then let Jesus do what Jesus does. I'm reminded again, I think I jotted it down somewhere here. It's John, I think, yep, John chapter 4. When Jesus is talking to this woman, Samaritan woman at the well, and she's had all of these men in her past, and the guy that she's with now she's not married to, and Jesus calls her out on all of that. So here we have a lady that just isn't, okay, you understand, not the strongest Christian in the world, if at all, but she does have a spiritual question she asked Jesus, so she does have some spiritual knowledge and background. But anyway, it says that this woman who had a messed up life, she goes back into the town and says, hey, you got to come and meet this guy. And the whole town comes out, and not only that, they listen to Jesus and they beg him to stay. And Jesus was able to touch a lot of lives. Now, how much knowledge did she have? What kind of a spiritual person was she? So in the very basic way, we can just say to people, or we can just invite people to a place where they can meet Jesus and let Jesus do what Jesus does, and God's people do what God's people do, and loving on people. So one of the things we think is that we can't do it. Another assumption is that people really don't want to hear about it. And it's just an awkward thing and puts everybody uh, definitely not at ease when you bring it up, and everybody gets apprehensive and tense and all of that stuff. And a lot of times we think, oh, this person wouldn't want to, they wouldn't accept it. They're rough, they're whatever. And what's weird is we kind of decide who gets to hear the message and who doesn't. Now, is that right or wrong? Uh, I think the answer is just obvious as it can be. It's not a good thing. Uh, I'm reminded, we used to, well, you don't know, but we used to run a youth crisis shelter, and we get kids out of jail and out of horrendous situations. And it was a state-funded thing, but it was kind of ran by Christians, and almost all kids that came through that in the 3 months that we were able to have kids there, I mean, they could stay for 3 months, and by that time they had to either go into foster care or something. But invariably, most of those became Christians. And what's cool is when they first came in, it's Joe Tough. The second week, they're going, okay, I'm kind of fitting in. The third week, they're leaning in because they're seeing something pretty awesome here. They're seeing the love of Christ and what God can do in people's lives, and they're seeing happiness and joy, things that they don't have because they're not Christians. In the fourth week, they become a Christian. And so they become an example for all these new kids coming in. They'd all go through that process, and we'd see kid after kid give their life to Christ. And these are pretty rough situations. I'm reminded of Jimmy, a guy that, yeah, that's just how God wired me, that we got out of jail, had a tattoo that he was giving himself that was all infected, and had on black shoes, tennis shoes, big deal, and socks that don't match that are all worn out down around his ankles, and green jogging shorts, and some black t-shirt or something, and just really rough looking, just a partier. I mean, heavy partier, high school kid, that could do whatever and have as much fun as he wanted, and we got him out of jail, and man. Uh, It's crazy what God did in his life and the lives of so many others. There was a gay person I know that came through, and it was years later. He said, hey, God found us and said, I gave my life to Jesus. And it all started with just sharing God's love. And there's story after story of that here at the Crossing. People have been touched and lives have been messed up, and that's what we're to be about. Jesus called us. Our number one thing for you and me is to go make disciples. And I don't know how you're doing at that. But that's what God's called us to do, the number one thing. That's it. So I just want to encourage you with that. I wish we could spend the whole 5 weeks just looking at Acts in the light of evangelism. And I think we grow so much there and come out at the end of 5 weeks with what we need to touch people's lives for Christ. They're just story after story. I remember a drunk guy stumbling out of a bar, and I just curled up my lip and thought, man, what a loser. And, right then God said, dude, yeah, I love that guy, and I died for him, and he needs me. So that's it, evangelism. So, maybe park on Acts chapter 17 and look at Athens and make a bunch of notes. Maybe I'll shoot a video and get that out to you sometime about that. I'm not sure. But it's a great exercise. This is like 17 minutes long. That's long enough. Need to turn you loose so you can get to your studies. But anyway, hear what I'm saying. And let's take the study serious and get ourselves trained up and ready to make a difference for Jesus. Okay? Love you guys. Yell at me if you need anything. I'm here.